All right, looks like we're recording.
Yep.
Hey, everybody out there, this is Sam Dennehy, aka Halfass Customs, and this is Halfass Presents, the podcast. We have Matt. Oh, shoot. How do you say your last name? I'm sorry.
Gidley?
Yes. We have Matt as my special guest tonight, and we're going to talk about 187 scale cars and the hobby. So, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the hobby?
I started with trains, and I grew up in San Jose, California. I'm in Iowa now, so a little bit of a switch in high school. And I used to spend weekends with my grandma, who lived right next to Southern Pacific train yard servicing facility. So I'd go down there and hang out and watch trains. And we had a guy that went to church who had a whole basement full of S-scale trains. And so he got me totally hooked into trains, and the vehicles kind of just came with the trains. And as I saw what people were doing, there was a lot to be desired in the vehicle part of, layouts and dioramas. And so that kind of took me off into 187th scale vehicle modeling.
Well, that's pretty interesting because you say you started off with the knowledge of S scale, which ends up scaling down to Hot Wheels scale.
Yeah.
So it's definitely crazy that you went with the 187 scale instead of just the common 99-cent Hot Wheel you can pick up from anywhere.
Yeah, I had the HO scale trains already from train sets as a kid and stuff. So I just stuck with the trains were more expensive than the vehicles. And so I went that direction.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. It's really neat to hear kind of backstories on how people got into it and why they ended up going with what they went with. Because like you just said, like you were introduced with it with S scale and you end up going with HO scale because of what you had when you were a kid. I had train sets when I was a kid, but I've always been a train fan, but more a car lover. So
Mhm.
my side just stayed with the cars way more than the trains, but I always appreciated the trains. And whenever you talk to anybody about their train set or their love for the hobby of trains, I mean, you definitely know they're trained people. More than anything, they know everything about their layout or about the train, about everything to do with trains. And it's really cool to talk to enthusiastic hobby people like
Yeah.
that. I know when I met you the first time at the RPM meet, you were just telling me all kinds of stuff about your cars, and it's really neat to see the craftsmanship and detail you put into your vehicles. Because when you photograph them and you end up seeing them on Facebook, sometimes they look real. Like you do a good job in the detail. It's really amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. First off, I I I kind of way back in the '90s, I would get the Walters catalogs for the trains, and back then, Ken Patterson was doing them, and not many people knew who Ken was at that time, and I didn't either, but I loved. They just look so real. All the staging and mainly the way he always took everything outside and photographed it in sunlight, and that was kind of the secret ingredient or whatever.
Right.
And all that was back before the internet mainly. So way back, man, I don't even remember when it was, but I tracked down Ken. I was big in structure modeling back then, and I was real interested in a bunch of the buildings and stuff he had on the Walters catalog cover. And over time, I found out, that was Ken and Mike Buddy's cars and Vic Smith, some of his stuff. So I finally got in touch with Ken on the phone back pre-internet again, and got to talk to him a few times, and he was just kind of my idol guy for photography, and setting stuff up outdoors and shooting low, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he really does, and he's a wealth of information and knowledge and help. Um, I know when I was on the show before we would tape the show, he was all over the place, and his brain is like broken up into a million different pieces doing a million different things, but in everything he's doing, he's engaged with everybody that's around. Anybody's got a
Yeah.
question, anybody, he's a madman with being able to do everything at once, it seems like.
Yeah.
And you're right, like the photographs are amazing what he does. He really knows what he's doing, which is really awesome.
Yep.
So,
So
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you can go.
I was just gonna say, yeah, ever since then, and seeing how he did things, I always try and wait until I get a decent day where I can go outside and photograph some things. And I've only got a diorama or two that I shoot with, and so you learn some tricks about setting up, a building. And if you shoot low enough, your scenery doesn't matter that much. You can hide a lot of stuff. So
Right. Yeah, I've noticed. I was talking to, who was I talking to? I think I was talking to Junior Berg, or I don't know who I was talking to. I was just talking to somebody. My memory is just shot, and we were talking about uh, taking photographs and how if you know how to do it, even if you just know a little bit, you can make the photograph work for you instead of against you.
yeah.
And
Yep.
like, I'm not a great modeler. I just know how to make something that's eye-catching, even though it may have a lot of flaws, but I'll take the photo to where you'll never notice those flaws
Yeah.
unless you really dissect it, which I hope you don't. But yeah, that's cool. I know you're yeah, I just think your models are really, really well done. Um and I won't even say like they're extremely customized in the sense of when you look at it, you're like, that's a totally different vehicle. Your customization and building skill set goes more to the realism. Like every little door handle or every little mirror or every little detail you can put in your model. Like you had that mail truck, the big, it was a
Oh
big mail
yeah.
truck.
Yep.
I don't know what those commercial vehicles are called, but it's some big mail truck from the post office. And that thing, you put that thing with the right light, with the right background, that's it. That thing looks real. I mean, it's really, really well done.
Well, thanks again. I started off in the structures again, being kind of more on the artsy side of stuff, and the prototype modeler guys would tick me off all the time, trying to be accurate with everything. Bunch of rivet counters drive me crazy. But as I got into vehicles, I knew I was kind of making them for the layout that I don't have yet, and so I would look at proto photos, and there are so many guys like Mike Buddy, and Vic Smith does a good job with his vehicles, and
Yeah,
everybody on
he's
the
awesome.
187 vehicle group. They're so good at it that you look at some of those and go, dang, they just keep taking it up to a different level all the time. And so I just try and get the most detail I can on them.
Well, I think you nail it. I really do. And I honestly, since I've been into the scale, I can't say I've seen a huge amount of your models. I know when you go to the RPM meets, you don't typically fill the table like I do, but mine's more just eye-catching stuff to get the little kids to like it. And yours are really, really well done. I don't even know what to say besides that. I'm blown away on how I put your models up against like John Tyson and Mike Buddy's just for the great craftsmanship of building. And even if you don't say or don't tell us the little secrets on, oh, I don't really do much, it just comes this way. I don't know. But however you make it end up, you do a great job. And I'm pleased to see them every time I saw them at the show. And I
Well, I
wish I
really
could have saw
appreciate
them
that.
this year. Yeah, man, I'm a fan.
Yeah, it's
So
such a great community because I love what you do, and you're not the same as what Mike would do or somebody else, and everybody kind of has their little thing that they're just super great at, and you can kind of take a little bit from this and a little bit from that and mix it together and just get a lot of enjoyment out of doing something new or trying to get a technique for someone else. And
yeah, I was just talking to Robert Kelly, and he's he's the son of the other Kelly, the Crane guys, and they go to the RPM meet. And
yeah, yeah.
we were talking about his cranes and how I need to step out of my shell and maybe build something. And we're gonna work on somehow me getting a crane and trying to build it. I don't know how that's gonna work, but I told him don't expect it to look like any crane you're ever gonna actually see. This is gonna be a lowrider custom car
Yeah,
crane.
low rider. Chop it a little
I mean,
bit.
I've already built a hot rod diesel engine train, so I might as well build myself a hot rod crane of some kind
Yeah, why not?
and just piss off all the other people that can't stand it because I didn't build it right.
Yeah, that was one of the things about going to the RPM show for the first time, and I wasn't sure what to expect because I really like going on the kind of flights of fancy, maybe non-prototype stuff, and I'm like, oh man, if I bring something like that in there, is it gonna be a big deal? But uh, it's such a great show, the St. Louis one, and everybody's cool with whatever. So
Yeah, I was pretty leery about that as well. Considering what I build and how I build it, I knew that it was mostly going to be train related stuff, not like a model car show where it's just cars and trucks, and that's all I was bringing. And then how I was bringing it, like just what I display on the table. I know most of the people that were at that show were they probably admired it, but it wasn't their thing for sure.
mhm.
I, I do stick out like a sore thumb sometimes, but it's in a good way.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. Do you think you can tell us where you're at now with your modeling? You think, like, do you feel in your skill set that you're where you want to be, or do you think you see yourself way down the road being like way better? Because I think you're really good already.
No, I got a ways to go on certain things, and I've been putting off taking the plunge into the mold making and casting, like Mike was talking about, and so I've got several projects ready to go where I have a master done, and I need to try and make a mold out of it, and I just haven't taken the plunge, but I need to do it, and whatever happens, happens.
So do I. I me and Robert were talking about that the other night, and I was saying I kind of wish that 3D printing could just be so easy to the point to where you just see a picture of what you want, slide it over to the print option, and then just hit it, and then
Yeah,
it's ready. You know, I want it to be that simple because I don't have the skills yet or the patience to learn how to shrink something from another scale to what I
yeah,
need it to be. But, everything is in due time. So you never know.
yep.
So when you build, how long do you think it takes you from start to finish on a project? Are they relatively around the same time or do they vary greatly?
They vary, and honestly, uh, like the amount of days it would take me to finish something, or months in some cases, I only work on it for a fraction of the time because I got three kids under 10. And so I don't have the modeling time that I wish I had. So I do a lot of
Yeah.
starting and stopping and
Yeah. Most of my modeling is done during the day when they're at school. So
Mhm.
I get away with that. Um, and
Perfect.
then once that end of the school day comes around, it's just like, darn it, I'm right in the middle of something I want to finish real quick, but I have to go.
Yeah.
So how long do you think the most detailed and long, yeah, let me rephrase that. How long do you think the most detailed model you built took you?
Vehicle model, it's probably that Greyhound box truck that we talked about earlier, and that one took
Yes, it
a
was a
matter of
Greyhound, my
months.
bad. I said it
Yeah,
was a mail truck.
it
Sorry.
started out as a mail truck, and I left some of the. It had the red, white, and blue stripes, so I left those, and it matched up with Bush has that pretty nice box that had the Greyhound graphics on it already, so. I just went ahead and paired them together and made some modifications, and but that definitely took months to do that, and a lot of it, I'm kind of learning as I go with uh, swapping out. I did different wheels and different colors before I found out what looked good on camera, and the weathering of vehicles is like a whole nother area you can go into. And so
Oh yeah,
I was trying new techniques on weathering to get a decent weathering job on it. And I'm happy with what I got. I had some happy accidents in there, but
that's cool. Um, so I guess next question, you are a model railroader it, in heart, I guess, because you don't
yeah.
technically have a railroad yet. Um, but what is the time frame of vehicles and trains that you would be modeling in? I mean,
I do
you have vehicles already, but like once you get the trains to match the vehicles and whatnot.
yeah, I'm shooting for basically the early 90s. And so you know, back then it seems like vehicles didn't switch quite as fast. People didn't buy new cars as fast. So I get a lot of the late 80s vehicles, and then up to about 96 is kind of my sort of cutoff.
That's not bad. That's a good year. We need a lot more imports around because
Yeah.
that's why you
Yep.
weren't switching of cars because the Japanese have figured out how you can keep a car forever.
Yeah. Yep. So all those imports and like we need like Datsun trucks and little Toyotas, stuff like that too. So
Right. Well, I do know that Mad About Cars on Shapeway is trying to do his best on creating a lot more imports, but at probably $30 to $40 a car. That's a little pricey.
yeah. Yep.
I mean, if you want it bad enough, you'll get it, but yeah,
Yeah.
you won't have a whole bunch of them.
And that's
Um,
another thing I got to do is I really wanted to get a 3D car and try it after watching you and Mike work on them. And I haven't done a 3D car yet, so I'll get
wow,
there.
yeah, do that. You will need to do the Mike Buddy windshields and side
Yeah.
glass, but other than that, if you buy that highest print quality version of it, uh, there's virtually little to no prepping work to it because their printers are so much better than they were, say, a couple years ago. So yeah,
That's
I'd
cool.
say do it, man. Join the club
Yeah.
because they have. He's created so many models, designs of models that no company makes, and I
Mhm.
don't think any company will make for whatever reason. So they're definitely worth getting at least one of each, I'd say,
Yeah.
and trying it out, see how it works. It's not a bad model. I mean, it's you get a two-piece model, so an interior chassis wheel and then the body to go on top of that.
Hmm.
It's just like if you were to take apart a regular model today and that you only had those two pieces.
Yeah.
Um, So it's not really hard with that highest print. I'd say it's definitely worth it, and I think you'll like it if you can afford to keep doing it
Yeah.
because they're not cheap. But yeah, that's neat. That's neat that you're modeling in that time frame because you don't see a lot of that time frame. You see everybody modeling in the 50s and then the 60s
Yep.
and then before and a little bit after, but not into the late 80s or mid 80s to
Yeah.
mid 90s. And I wonder why. Like, do you know besides the vehicle wise why people may not be modeling in that? I mean, they make trains for every single year of every single type for a billion different reasons.
Yeah. I don't know. I've wondered if I would have kept going except for the Southern Pacific, which is the road that I model. They got bought up by Union Pacific in '96, so that kind of cut everything for me right there. And
Makes sense.
but if SP kept on going and they were, getting all the newer equipment and everything, I don't know if I would keep going. I That was one I used to hang out at the train yard and kind of when I was a kid and all those good memories. So there's a lot of nostalgia tied up in that for me.
Yeah, that's why I do the lowriders because it's nostalgia for me too. I moved to a state that virtually has none, and I come from a state, Southern California,
Yep.
that is the mecca of all lowriding. And my teenage years was in the 90s, and that's when I fell in love with that whole scene. So that's why I build it, just like how you're saying that's, the childhood and what you remember and why you build what or the time area you're building. So then, if you're building in that time frame, uh, what is the favorite type of model to build, say vehicle or even buildings or whatever, or both? Like I know
Um,
some people build most people build commercial vehicles, but what
yeah,
do you like mostly?
I like the structure stuff, but it takes so much time that when my kids started taking more of my time up, the vehicles were really cool because at least I told myself when I started, it would be smaller little projects and it'd be easier to crank vehicles out than it would a structure or a diorama or whatever. Uh,
Right.
but but then I guess if you get super involved on detailing them, they can take you just as long anyway. So uh,
Yeah, it definitely can. And then if you're only working on it little bits at a time because of,
yeah, yep.
life priorities, yeah, that can definitely take time. Um, well, shoot, because I was thinking if if you built like more passenger vehicles, or if you detailed more passenger vehicles, or if you just specifically like the commercial vehicles more, that's kind of what I was
Oh
thinking
yeah,
on.
yep. No, I the funny thing is I started with passenger vehicles and I kind of swore that I wouldn't get into like the semi trucks and stuff because there's kind of a whole group, Jim Groneweg and all the people on the
Oh
87 tour
yeah,
do awesome trucks. And
right.
but then I kind of got sucked into it. So I've got semi trucks on the shelf like crazy, just waiting for me to get to them. But I like the
Wow.
passenger vehicles.
Yeah, well, that's understandable, and it does amaze me. I was talking to probably one or two of the guests earlier, and I was saying it seems strange that passenger vehicles versus commercial vehicles, you can't, how do you say, you can't really have a layout or a diorama without passenger vehicles. And I know a lot of people do just commercial. And I always wondered why just
Yeah,
commercial? Why collect or model just semi trucks but nothing else? Why have a whole entire fleet of your own semi company but not have any passenger vehicles? Because how are you going to get home from your job if you drove there? Are you taking your work truck home with you, or are you taking your passenger vehicle home? And you see more passenger vehicles in real life than you do commercial, unless you live in some rural area where it's all commercial and everybody drives their truck home.
Yeah.
So it always made me wonder why there's more commercial vehicles out there than there were, like model builders and collectors, than there were passenger vehicles. So that makes sense, I guess, if you're saying like you didn't really want to get into it, but you kind of see yourself getting sucked into it somehow. So how many, are you a collector as well, or more just a modeler and collecting to model those cars or trucks?
Oh man, as my wife would tell you, I have a bad collective hobby. So I I scoured eBay, picking up different cars and stuff, and I like talking to Joseph Blevins because he buys, a lot of stuff too.
Yeah,
And
and he's a structure builder too.
yeah, yep.
Yeah,
And
he's going to be on this podcast sometime.
yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah. Um, so then, being that you build more vehicles, you said you also like building structures. Um, how often and how many structures have you built, or do you build? And do you sell them, or do you just do it for your own collection?
I basically do it for myself, but I've sold a few little dioramas, and after there were a few that I sold, I'd take pictures before I sold them, and I almost always would be kicking myself afterwards, going, "Man, I wish I didn't sell that." And so I basically keep what I build, and I was big into George Celios, and like fine scale miniatures kits were kind of one of my big things when I was starting modeling. And so I've got a bunch of his kits on the shelf that need to be built, but it's a pretty big undertaking to hop into one of those. So
Yeah, I had one of those once, and it was an old like 1930s gas station. And
uh-huh.
I opened it up, and I said, I don't think I'm ever going to get to this. I might as well just trade it or sell it. I, I want to, I would love to, but yeah, I'm probably not.
Yeah, yep.
So when you're looking for a vehicle, um, do you have like ideas in your head already that you want to do with those vehicles, or do you just kind of collect a bunch of stuff and then wait for the inspiration to come, or both?
Yeah, one of the things I did when I knew what era I was modeling in, kind of that early 90s era, was look up what were the most popular 20 cars at the time, in the US in 1993 or whatever. And so I figured, well, if I'm going to have a big city on a layout, I need to have, the most popular cars. So it's like Ford Taurus and
Honda
Chrysler
Civics,
LeBaron
right?
and your typical stuff, F-150 kind of stuff. And so
That's
I've got
cool.
a ton of those that I need to do.
So when you get them, you pretty much get them built from whatever company made that particular car. And when you see it, do you instantly go, I need to make it look better to look more realistic for the layout? Or let me just maybe add different wheels or a different paint job, and then that should or could be enough for whatever I need it for?
Yeah, along with whatever details happen to be missing from it, I usually hit the internet right away and go search for a 93 Ford Taurus, and so I can see what the different trim models were and everything. And I haven't figured this out, but for some reason, white is the most popular vehicle color that sells. But for whatever reason, there aren't a lot of white model cars, it seems like. And so, I'll look at colors too as what should it be? Is it a real color? And I'm not quite up to like a Mike Buddy doing a paint match on something, but I'm just like, all right,
Or
if it's a
building
baby
every
blue,
version of it.
yeah, yep. So, and then I just pick a trim level that I want to go with and see what I can do.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I don't typically do it that way, so that's neat to see other people's views on their modeling. Um, I mean, obviously, if most people know what I like. I go for the classics, so I can make them customs and hot rods and lowriders and whatnot. And whenever I look at it, I automatically know I'm not leaving it that way, even if it's something as easy as just changing the wheels.
Hmm.
Um, but I never really know until I'm just getting ready to build it what I want to do. And then sometimes I don't even know, even when I'm building it, how I want to go with it. Like I'll see a car and I'll be, that's going to be a lowrider. Okay, so I need at least the lowrider wheels. The rest I got to figure out how I want it to look and what color and what not. And then like a rat rod, it's going to have white walls and it's just going to be ratty. Take as many parts that don't need to be on that car off of it, and you're probably good to go.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's neat to see because I talked to quite a few people already, and their ideas of what they have to see in their head when they're deciding on what to model seems to kind of all be somewhat different but all the same. I mean, we're all modelers. We know what we want to build and what we need to build it. But then, like you said, you search the internet and find as much information about how you want it to look and how it should look. And I think that's where we all come together. Like the ideas are different, the genres are different, but what we want to execute and how we do it seems to be the glue that sticks us all together in the modeling world, because we all don't want to just leave it how it came. We never want to do that. So that's pretty neat to hear your perspective on how you model.
Yeah,
That's
the
cool.
what is it? Ford Fairmont was a good example where I had a couple of the Atlas Fairmonts sitting around, and they're late 70s, I think, and so I figured they either have to be, for my 95 time frame, they've got to be either an old beater or someone restored it, for racing or whatever. So when I went out on the
Right.
internet for that one, I found the station wagon I did with the back door open, and it's kind of a rusty beater kind of deal. And
As
then
it would be. Yeah.
yeah, I'm working on a drag racing version with some big old fat tires in the back and everything. So
Oh, that's cool. That's where I was kind of gonna go to next is what do you have that you're working on now, if anything, and can you show us, or is it gonna have to wait till the next RPM meet?
yeah, no, my specialty is starting projects and not finishing them. So I've
Oh,
honed my
geez.
skill set on that really well. And so I've got tons of stuff taken apart. With the Ford Fairmonts, let me see, I got the little get it up to the camera here. Let's see. Dee, 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 dee.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's the little open station wagon one. And so
That's awesome.
I've got that, and then somewhere here I've got a whole box of Fairmonts, like 3 or 4 of them that I'd taken apart already. Yeah, here we go. And I've got the let's see, switch the wheels out on this little guy. Get some light in here, and gave it a nice matte finish, and then I'll do some rusting on it, and it's kind of going to be Grandma's Ford Fairmont. And
Right,
then
because that's who would be driving those in the 90s.
yep. And
That's
then I've
awesome.
got like more of a got the bigger wheels put on there so far, and and I was thinking of putting a big blower on the front or something, and a
Oh,
bunch
that'd
of
be neat.
racing stickers and stuff like that. Uh, so kind of, I've got so many of the different things, like the Tauruses and the Ford Fairmonts, and I've got a bunch of pickup trucks. So I kind of go at them all at the same time, kind of like Mike's doing with his Camaros, where
Right.
you
He's
work on
building
all the
every
same
single
thing
version.
and you do every trim level of it or whatever. So
Yeah. I'm not anywhere close to that crazy yet and building the same vehicle. I when I talked to him, I think in the video I said the vehicle I've built the most has got to be that Ghostbusters car, and then next the '64 Impala,
yep.
thanks to him and 87 RPM or RPM 87. Anyways, th- them being able to offer that car, and then Mike helping me out with details, parts, and whatnot. I've built so many of those '64 Impalas, and I'm going to keep building. That's like my favorite lowrider, and I'm going to try to do it in every different way I possibly can. But I'm not building a Bel Air or a Del Rey. I'm keeping it an Impala, just putting different paint and different wheels on all of them.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. With your detail parts, do you typically like using the photo etch parts, or do you try to find other means of details too? Like I know John Tyson offers a lot of detail parts, and I know you can just go to the internet and find photo etch details for almost any commercial vehicle out there, I think. Do you typically go for the I guess common stuff you can find on the internet, or try and maybe make stuff yourself, or just find different things so your cars look different than what everybody else is putting on their car?
Yeah, I use a lot of the photo etch stuff, and I bought a lot of parts from Plano last time I was there, and they make such good stuff, like the mirrors, and they had the kits for the Atlas Ford trucks, and so that's a good starting point for stuff. But then I like kind of thinking out of the box too, so I'll wander around at Hobby Lobby for an hour and just kind of see what other crafty things you can use. And one good example was, like, I know you do this too, with they have both like the holographic foil tapes, and
Yeah.
I found like a reflective, it's kind of like vinyl sheeting that they use for laser cutting or something. I don't know who, some
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, but I found that you can cut out headlights out of the holographic deals. They're circular, so if you take your pictures outside, it really catches the light, kind of like an actual reflector headlight would. Or that's how I've been doing, like side marker lights in red and orange and stuff.
That's
So
actually a pretty neat idea. Um, I use I use a Mike Budd uh, rear tail light idea. He like years ago he posted like a how-to for taillights, and I think he used bare metal foil for
mhm.
like the surrounding of a '55 Chevy taillight, and then took like it's like a red marker pen like this sort of, and it comes out clear but red, like a red tint, and then over that chrome it has like a see-through, so it looks like,
Yeah, yep,
I don't know how to explain it, but that's what I've been doing. It has like you can see the chrome behind the lens sort of
yep.
thing. I've been doing that forever since I saw his video. But that foil stuff, whatever it is, that reflective stuff, that's a neat idea. I've been wanting to do a whole car paint job with that, but I can't figure out how to bend that stuff good enough to where it'll work how I need it, because it doesn't lay flat when I'm trying to bend it around the whole entire car.
Yeah. It
Can
looks
it?
great, but it kind of sucks to work with. So
Yeah, right. Because there's a rainbow version of that foil stuff that is like it's all chrome rainbow colors. And I think how
yeah,
awesome would that be to have that rainbow chrome on a car, but it won't work.
yeah. But one of the things I just found, and I don't have the car sitting here, but I had a hard time doing like the door rub trim and stuff like that. Uh, I don't do a whole lot of decaling yet, and I found they have that same vinyl self-stick sheet, and you can cut a really thin piece of either black or like a stainless steel reflective silver and put it on, and it's way easier than the bare metal foil stuff.
Hmm, that's pretty interesting. If I got an idea for that, but you have to be able to cut it super thin. But if you to take like regular tape, like masking tape, like painter's tape, it
Hmm.
already comes. I don't doubt this will show it, but it comes textured already, kind of like a bumper guard would be. And if you could cut it small enough and then paint it with like a black marker, it could, and it would be lifted off the car already, like a regular bumper guard would on a door, where it's
Hmm.
not flush with the car because the tape is thicker than paint. It could work that
Yeah, I don't know
way.
if you can see that, but it's just a silver reflective roll, but
Oh yeah.
it's not just like chrome, it's actually got line in it, almost like a stainless steel or something. So they have some really cool
Oh, that's
different
cool.
finishes. So I
Neat.
got to work with them a little yet.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea. You know, that's what's really cool about this hobby too, is because we have limited supplies of stuff for this scale, the outside of the box thinking is really gotta like play in hard to find what you need and get the good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's another great thing about the hobby is everybody that finds it or knows it is always so nice to share it.
Hmm.
Because I've been in like the Hot Wheel world, and when you start customizing those, not everybody's as nice because they want to keep their secrets to themselves.
Yeah. No, everybody's helped me as I've tried to learn stuff, and everybody from Ken and Mike, all those guys are so willing to share what they do, and so I try, and if I come up with something cool, I want to be able to share that with people too.
So I guess I have to ask, how's that custom car of yours uh, sitting at home there? Is it good? Are you keeping it nice and snug?
Which custom car?
The one I built you. Didn't we didn't I build you a car? I thought I
Oh
built you a
yeah.
car and we
Yep.
traded.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I was thinking real car. I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a real one, but yeah, no, I've got yours big time. It's in my nice display case.
Awesome. Yeah, because I do like I do customer builds and then
Yep.
I never see that car after I ship it. That nobody ever posts it anywhere saying, "Oh, I just received this cool car from this guy or whatever." Nobody does that. It just disappears in the mail and I never see it
Yeah.
again.
I managed to break one of the antennas off the back of it right away, so it's in my to be
Oh,
fixed line of stuff right now. But
well, you can't hear the radio in that thing anyway, so
yeah, but
it's okay.
that's a good point too, because one of the things that I really like to do, you talk about people sharing their ideas, is I've been lucky enough to be able to buy or trade stuff with different people who are really good at stuff, and so like when I was trying to learn weathering, um, I'd get uh, try and get semi trailers and things like that and buy them from people who actually knew what they were doing. Because if you can look at one in your hand, sometimes it's easier to figure out if you're doing too
Right.
much weathering or whatever versus looking at a photo on Facebook. So,
No, you're exactly correct because you can, like I was saying, I hope nobody diagnoses any of my cars, but you have the opportunity to, like, you're holding it in your hand, you can dissect it and see
yeah.
everything that they've done or that was done and can be done to what you need to pull off that same look. So that's really cool. That's cool, Matt. I'm glad I talked to you. You seem to be you're just a cool guy, man.
Yeah.
I like your modeling ideas and your little skills, and it it's really neat to see, like especially in person, your cars, because of the great detail that maybe a photo doesn't completely capture. But when you had that Greyhound bus in one of your photos, I think the 187 sale model, or the Facebook group, I think they posted that as the group photo for a while.
Yeah.
It had the outside sunlight background with the building and that thing looked real, man. You did a great job with taking that photo and mocking it all up.
Well, thanks. The other tip I can give on photos is if you want one good picture of something, take 100 pictures of it, and
Yes,
then
yes,
go
correct.
through, and one of them is usually bound to be better than the rest.
You're definitely right. Um, definitely. So you said you live in Iowa? Is
Yep.
that what you said?
Yeah,
You
Northeast Iowa.
you ever plan on going to I know it's a long ways away for you, but that Amherst show in Springfield, Massachusetts?
Oh man, I'd love to go. Uh,
Yeah, I would love for you to go too.
Usually in January, right?
Yeah, at the end of January in the dead middle of winter up
Yeah,
there.
I'm like, what are the East Coasters doing holding stuff in the middle of January? Come on, I can't get out of Iowa.
Yeah, here's the funny thing. We went up there this year for the first time ever, and all week the news was saying it's going to be snowing and raining. So we packed snow gear basically, thinking it was going to be below freezing. Um, and it ended up being 55 to 60 degrees the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a freak twist of weather that changed it completely, and there was no snow. So
Nice.
I was good with that because I
Yeah,
didn't need my jacket that I brought.
yeah. I was bummed that all the St. Louis RPM and the national show was there, and all that ended up getting canceled. So I didn't have a whole lot of stuff that was new that I was planning on taking, but I always enjoy seeing everybody's work and hanging out with everybody. So
Yeah, it's cool when you can actually meet up with people and talk to them face to face and talk shop basically, because you can you can do that on Facebook or whatever social media that you're using, but it's not the same. It's
yeah,
definitely not the same because my typing skills are less than my speaking skills, and I don't even think I speak all that well. Um, but I can tell you a lot more in such a faster time than I could type it out and try to tell you it. And
mm-hmm.
then the autocorrect's gonna come in and
Yep,
probably misspell something that I didn't want it spelt that way, and end up being a whole nother word.
yeah.
So Matt, this was a good interview. I try to I try to end some of my videos with sort of like an inspirational, um, if you had any advice you'd like to give to like new people coming into the hobby and might be listening to this podcast. Do you have any teaching advice or just any general advice for this hobby, for this scale, trains, cars, whatever,
Yeah,
modeling in general?
make sure you have a good job so you can afford to buy lots of detail parts. No, really, I would say the photographing is a big help. Uh, Even if your model's not done or if you're just starting, just take it outside and take a couple pictures of it from a lower perspective. So it was like you're taking a picture of a real car. And that way you can kind of get a view for what things are maybe oversized or what things are missing or whatever. Um, there's just stuff about seeing it in a picture versus holding it in hands that gives you ideas on what direction to go and what's right and what's not right.
Very true. I can give you a little example. I had built this little Rat Finks hot rod, purple with flames all over, with this huge engine coming out of the front.
Hmm.
And I took some really good photos, but what I didn't see with my eyes was like two little pieces of micro hair or
Yep.
whatever it is. And the photo picked it up perfectly. And I didn't notice it until I already submitted it to the 187 Scale Club photo
Uh-huh.
gallery. And sure enough, it gets in there, and that's all I'm seeing. I don't even really see the model. I mean,
Yeah.
because I've built it, so, but that's what my eye focused on too, and it made me so mad.
Yep.
Like, why didn't I see that?
I
Why
had
didn't I
one
see
where
that before I submitted it?
I set up models outside on a diorama and took a bunch of shots, and they looked great right off. And then when I finally got into to crop them and look through them on the computer, I noticed that one of the freaking front wheels fell off at some point in there. And so from a low view, you look through and there's no wheel, you know?
Yeah, that's the problem with the low view photo
Yep.
taking. But like you said, as long as you take enough pictures, you'll be able to go through them and figure out which one works the best.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Matt, this was a pleasure talking to you. I'm not sure. We went through pretty much all the kind of major points, how you got started and where you're at today and what you're working on, and the advice column. So I think unless you have anything else that you'd like to talk about, I'm pretty good on my end.
Yeah.
How do
The
you
couple
feel?
things I didn't say, um, one is I love looking at your work, and I'm
Oh,
a big movie guy. And coming up in the '80s with all the great vehicle TV shows, Knight Rider and Dukes of Hazzard, and the Ghostbusters and the A-Team van. I'm way into all that stuff, and so you basically beat me to modeling all of them. Uh, which is cool because like with the ecto, I love what you did with the lights and everything. And I'm not sure I would have been brave enough to go there right away, but
well,
I love all that.
just know the huge shout out goes to East Coast Circuit. They did the lighting.
Hmm.
I am not brave enough to do that, nor
Yeah.
skilled enough. I can make the car look good, but I need that extra hump to get me over so I can make it look really good. And they
Yeah.
did both. They made that car come alive, basically.
Yeah. I
But thank
love
you.
that. And I love the dioramas and your psycho house and everything sitting behind you there. Um, I've got a kit that was from Downtown Deco that was a diorama that I did uh, called Grimm's Funeral Home. And I did it back, I think, in 2010. And it was like a diorama I built specifically to take to shows. And I wanted to see how far I could go with like creating an environment. And so I really wanted to take it with me this year to the RPM meet. It's like the least prototype thing you could ever have, uh, but anyway, I've got this haunted haunted mansion, and it's got lighting effects, and it's inside a dark box basically, and it's got I built in like a sound system and a lightning system and everything, so it's really cool for the environment. And at some point
That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
bring that so you can check it out, but I think that'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, that all of that sounds right up my alley. I love the whole idea of it already. So next year,
Yep.
2021, we'll have to see that and meet up again.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, that's awesome, dude. I can't wait to see that. It was great talking to you. I love all your cars. I'm a fan. So you got my stamp of approval.
All right. Hey, I appreciate it,
um,
and I really love what you're doing with the show too, the podcast here.
oh,
So,
thanks. I thought I do a little something different. This isn't building cars, but it's building relationships.
yeah, yep.
All right, Matt. Well, Hey, I'm going to stop this recording. This is the end of the show. And you all have a good night. Let me figure out how to stop the show.